Yeah, hi everyone. Um, I'm just trying to get the live stream here. I hope you can see that. That's the Southwest Florida nest. I'm just getting the technology right. So this is the 360 camera actually of the nest. So it lets us rotate 360 degrees. So it's a big day today because we actually have a second clutch, which means a replacement clutch. I'll explain that in a moment. This is the Southwest Florida nest. It's Fort Myers. It's a very famous nest, and that's where things are happening at the moment. This is the first time where a second clutch has happened, so I'll explain that in a moment, what it is all about. I'm just trying to get the technology right, and hopefully I'll be with you in a second, so all this works. First of all, hi to hi to everyone on YouTube. I can see you all tuned in. That's really wonderful. I just wanted to ask you, at the moment, I can't get the direct live stream from the Pritchard nest. I only get the 360. It looks to me. Hi, Lady Hawk. Can you just check if you can see the direct camera, the camera from above? I can't get it at the moment. And if you do get it, can you please give me the direct link? For some reason, I can't get it now. So that's just a small technical problem I'm struggling with at the moment. I just have to see whether I'm on Facebook. 1 second. I have so many things to watch out for. Let's see if this is all working. 1 second. Yes, Facebook is working. That is great. That's wonderful. Hi, everyone on Facebook. That is great. So we are live here. I also have a special guest. I've got David Hancock. So I'm doing so much multitasking here, trying to organize everything, because this is a rather special moment. It's really quite magnificent. And hi, everyone on Periscope too. I can see that I've got all my screens open here. So I'm just going to try and get myself in there. Let's see if I can manage this somehow. Yes, I did. So anyway, I'm here. My name's Christian Sasse. I run the YouTube, the Facebook channel, and also Periscope on Sasse Photo. It's all about wildlife here. And this is a magnificent moment. So this is the 360 camera, actually. As you can see, I can move it backwards and forwards. What I'm trying to do at the moment is get the other camera, and for some reason, I haven't managed that. So just give me a second until I get all these things organized. But if you look carefully, you can see that is the little one. So that's the second clutch, the first egg of the second clutch, right? It's a so-called replacement clutch. It's so wonderful because there was a big tragedy at the nest about a month ago when the eaglet that was, I know it was actually a bit more than a month ago, it was 2 months ago, in I think it was January 15th, it died, and the cause of death was rat poisoning. We'll talk about that separately. But it was a very tragic incident, a really sad one. And anyway, this is a very happy moment because a month later, Harriet, that's Harriet there. I don't know, I think the internet must be overloaded at the moment because things are just not working. I don't know what's going on. Let me just try and, gosh, everything was working so nicely, and now. Okay, now we get some commercials first. We don't need those. Let me just skip the ad. And I think they may have some technical problems at the site. I'm just going to check and see if Lady Hawk is getting, or anyone is getting, the direct stream. I'm not sure at the moment. So this is that's a 360 one. I'm just going to see where the other one is. 1 second. Just give me a second. I need to do all this again. Southwest Florida nest, Eagle Cam. Where are you? So I go to videos live. I press on this. And it says the live stream is not available. Does anybody else get that? Sorry to ask this at the moment, but this only happened 5 minutes ago. I can only get the the 360 cam, but not the other one at the moment for some reason. And I don't know why. I don't know why. Hi, everyone. I will say hello to you in a moment. I see lots of messages coming here on Facebook. And then I also want to get in David Hancock. Once I get the, the direct camera going, I will definitely do that. So just give me a moment to resolve this. This is a crazy multitasking job. And it's weird. It's weird. The camera is thinking. But what I will, I'll do something else in a minute. So Lady Hawk, anyway, whom you all know, famous Lady Hawk, especially with her YouTube channel, who is so incredibly dedicated in giving so much footage. She says, send me lots of footage. So I'm going to show this footage of her in the meantime, whilst I resolve some technical problems. So this was very early this morning, and let me go to her notes quickly and update you, because she's given me a lot of good notes. So she says, Egg 3's hatch date time, March 31st, 2020, which is at 5:29:25 Eastern Daylight Time that happened. Welcome to the world, E15. Most likely E15 hatched sometime during the night, but we were unable to view. The first confirmed sightings were at 5:29:25 a.m. A pip was seen at 7:06 of egg number 4. So you got, that's very cute what you're seeing at the moment. So you get this little overweight, heavy, bubbly head, can hardly keep the balance going backwards and forwards. So that's quite remarkable. So the remarkable thing is, this is the second clutch. It's the replacement clutch that came after the first clutch. So it's egg number 1 of the second clutch. But if you look at the whole season, it's egg number 3 of looking at 2 clutches. Does that make sense? So what's really rare here is it's a second clutch. It's a replacement clutch. Because, tragedies have happened before in nests, but in this case, it's a really replacement clutch. And they both seem to be successful. We'll see the second one still, but it's it's very nice to see this anyway. So anyway, Lady Hawk has kindly done this and provided this footage to everyone. So yes. It took E15 approximately 1 day, that's a long time, 22 hours, 15 minutes, and 25 seconds to break completely out of the shell. Wow, that's quite something. That's a long time. Most likely E15 hatched sooner, but we are not able to confirm. And then she goes about the time. And she said, I read something else, a very interesting fact here. 1 second, if I can just find it. Yes, that's quite important. You may notice a bit of pink coloring on E15. So this is E15, the 15th of spring. Most likely this is from the blood vessels that were pulled away, as we noted during the hatch when the blood was at the pip area. This should eventually go away. Yeah, that's a very good remark. Thank you very much for that. Lady Hawk, that's great. So anyway, we got a lot of viewers here. That's fantastic. I'm just going to quickly say hello to you, and then I will try and get the other live stream back. Did anybody... Okay, here's the link of Cam 1. Thank you very much, Lady Hawk. I must have done something wrong. So she's just given me the link. I'm going to try and get that over quickly. So just give me a second. Southwest Florigal Eagle Cam. So I must have just done something wrong. Just give me a second. I'm going to just jump in here and try and copy her link. Let's see. So let me just type in Southwest. It might just get this. Florida Eagle Cam. That may just work. Okay, so obviously this. Let's go again here. Channel. So if I press on this, it's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking. Yes, we are here. Thank you very much, Lady Hawk. Perfect. We got it. We got it. We got it. This is absolutely fantastic. Okay, now I finally got the technology right. Thank you. That was a small moment of panic again, but we have it. So this camera is, of course, much better than the 360 camera at the moment. And you can see If anybody could just tell me, is this so? Harriet has been at the nest anyway in Southwest Florida since 2006. So they estimate the age actually of Harriet to be over 25 years, which is considerable. So that's the female. Then there was, of course, Ozzy in the beginning, and they shared the nest for a long time. That's the male. And then, unfortunately, Ozzy died in 2015, I think. And it was then replaced by what they call male 15, M15. And they have been at the nest successfully for a number of years. So this is the biggest event now. So this is 2020. And usually the eggs would be laid somewhere in December. I always remember it somewhere around Christmas time. So that happened again. It was somewhere around Christmas time, and then they hatched and so on. And then unfortunately, on the 15th of January, M14 died. And I think E14 died. And I think the other one wasn't viable, the other egg. So there was only one viable egg, and that died of rat poison. We'll go into the horrific stories of rat poisoning later, because it's a very important educational point, and I'm going to get in David Hancock to talk about it in a moment. But most important, we have the live stream running now, so I'm really delighted to see that. It's all going very well. Also, this is just so brilliant, isn't it? The view we're getting at the moment. And so so this little fluffy one, I'm getting mixed up with all the names, E15 anyway, is doing fine. And then we have E16 on the way. So probably tomorrow we'll be seeing E16, and if possible, I'll be live streaming again. But let me first try and get my wonderful eagle biologist friend who is turning, listen to this, 82 tomorrow, 82 tomorrow. You have to listen to that, 82. So give me a moment of panic again, where I'm going to try and get him into, if I can manage all this. Let me see, get my friend. Okay, I have just muted him. Let me just get him back. David, are you still there? Okay. Okay, there's David. That's David Hancock. Can you believe it? This is my wonderful friend David Hancock, with whom I recently went to Dutch Harbor. That's the Aleutian Islands. It was an incredible adventure. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. I'm so pleased that you've got this all functional. I've lived through a number of your little crises, and you always seem to pull them off in the end. So that's kind of marvelous. But I have to comment. Looking at Lady Hawk's signal bit of film that she sent
Yes.
you about newly hatched.
Yes.
That was awesome. I mean, everybody calls them bobbleheads when they're that age, because, as you pointed out, they have great difficulty holding that great huge head up on a tiny little, such weak neck. But I mean, but the butt is so important. A bird that's going to have to swallow big hunks of food has to have a big beak, and you can't have a big beak unless you've got a big head to hold the beak. So they have to have this big head right to start with. I mean, it's kind of a seems to be a contradiction, but they do so well. And that little bird,
Yes,
was getting incredible exercise, because other than having a big beak on a big head, you got to have enough muscles in that neck to be able to reach up and grab the food from mom, because she's going to demand that. Mom will demand that the kid take the food from her beak.
Yeah, David, I mean, you have so much experience with eagles, and I'm really, you've taught me so many things over so many years. Can you talk a bit about this replacement clutch and your experience in nature, what it's all about?
Yeah, replacement clutches are a way that nature has of making up for predation or natural disasters. And a natural disaster, for example, around a lot of ducks and things that are around water levels, are that they get flooded out by a
Hmm.
spring flash flood and so on, and the eggs get drowned out. In eagles, and in a lot of other birds, there's other things happen. The tree gets blown over, gets bashed down. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can cause the loss of a clutch of eggs. In eagles itself, usually it's a real tragedy, like the nest falls or something like that. And when you get up to northern temperate areas like we are here, there's not usually the time to be able to go through a natural relaying and a recycling. Those Florida birds are very privileged because they have a longer nesting period when there's more food available and things aren't going to freeze up on them very shortly. Or so nature's method is to enable birds to, if they're determinate layers, meaning they produce a specific number of eggs, and eagles usually produce two, but the odd one only produces one, and occasionally they produce three, and there's a very few records of four, but most eagles produce two eggs, and they will lay their two eggs and they sit on them, and that's it. They sit on them for their 36, 37 days, and they hatch. And if they started to incubate the eggs with the first egg that they laid, then when they lay their second egg, usually 3 days later, 4 days some cases, then the second egg will hatch 3 or 4 days later. Every once in a while, and we've had that with a few of our birds, the
Yeah,
bird.
David, I'm going to invite some. So please, both on YouTube, Facebook, and also Periscope, please put in your questions. You're very welcome. I'm just going to read Mary Miller's question here on Facebook. I just see, curious, David, have you seen any other nests lay a second clutch after losing a live chick and not just unhatched eggs?
No, this is where I was going with all this. It's very rare to have a second eagle clutch. I believe there's a couple recorded in the southern areas. But the big key here, the key for most birds, cranes, and I have lots of cranes, and I've got double and triple clutches from cranes. Most cases, these big birds can't lay a second clutch if they've sat on the first clutch over a certain period of time. And usually with waterfowl or cranes, if they sit on them for more than about 15, 17 days, then the hormonal structures in the body that are flowing through the body start to reabsorb the second lot of eggs, the next two eggs that are developing in the oviduct. The hormonal structures in the bird's body change, and instead of those eggs continuing to get bigger and bigger for laying, all of a sudden nature has kind of proven the point that, okay, you've now got your first two young, and so we're not going to put more energy into raising the next two eggs in the body. We're now going to shut that system off, reabsorb those eggs, and you're going to put all your energy into raising your first two young. Now, in this case, it was unusual, and I have not known this before. Here, they not only sat on the eggs the whole full 36, 37 days, but then she was able to stop that because the chick died. She was then able to, 30 days later, recycle and produce the second pair of eggs. So what happened in the oviduct in the meantime is a bit of a mystery, but it undoubtedly recycled, the ovary recycled and started to generate another series of yolks to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Because when an eagle is born, the females, they have all the yolks already in their ovary, but they're minuscule, they're tiny. And then each season, two at a time, or some cases three, start to mature and get bigger and bigger. And after those ones are getting ready to be full size yolks and in a sense released into the body cavity to come down into the oviduct, then a couple more are starting to get a bit bigger, but that's the ones that are normally reabsorbed. And in this case, those first two eggs were laid. Then there was this great hiatus, a month and a bit, and then they were able to regenerate two more eggs. So that's really quite exceptional. And I have done that with lots of birds here, cranes. I raise usually 2 and 3 clutches of cranes by systematically pulling the eggs at a certain time, but always about 10, 11 days. So it's marvelous that this bird was able to naturally recycle, having lost 2 eggs, to recycle 2 new little tiny embryos that then redeveloped and grew into proper embryos or proper eggs, ova, and that's just so unusual. And I don't think it could have happened in our area because we couldn't afford that extra month and a half, 2.5 months actually, since the kid died. So
Yeah.
that would have put our birds already
Yeah.
trying
Yeah,
to.
David, I have lots of questions in, which
Yeah,
is
go
wonderful.
ahead.
Thank you everyone for sending, and lots of good questions. Actually, I'm going to. So I've seen a question from Mohammed. So on Facebook, I'll get to you one moment. Hi Maggie, by the way, Maggie Haynes in just a special welcome to you too on Facebook. Very nice to see you, a very dear friend in Florida, and. Oh, I see many others. I see, of course, Sherry, Amanda, and so on and so on. I can't read out all your names, so I just wanted to say hi to everyone. It's really wonderful to have you. But I'm going to read out a comment here from Jackie Porter first. David, next year, and this is very interesting, will Harriet's inner clock reset to laying in October or so, or will it change to February? That's a great question.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have a lot of experience on that, except that generally, when they cycle to lay their first egg, I think she will lay her first egg when she's normally geared up to do it. Eagles are so precise when they do things. I mean, people who followed some of our nests, they know that our one female eagle here, the White Rock pair, she laid her eggs within 20 minutes. 3 years apart. 20 minutes. I couldn't even tell you within the year, if I didn't have a clock, what day it was, let alone 20 minutes to lay the eggs every year at the same time. So the likelihood is, to answer your question, this pair will likely lay their eggs when they regularly are
Regularly,
geared
yeah.
up to lay, because it's probably
Okay.
based
Oh.
on the light cycle, how many minutes and daylight hours there are in the calendar, and that's probably what triggers her.
Okay, very good. Next question here from Mohammed. He says, also, okay, this was one thing he wanted to know. We need to know from David's opinion blood during hatching. So they found there was some blood, you could see it on the outer egg. Is this very common?
Oh yeah, it's always there. When the chick pecks through the shell from the inside of the actual calcium shell itself is actually lined with blood vessels. That's the nutrient layer that diffuses oxygen and so on from the outside to the inside. So when the chick first starts to peck through all these these outer to the outer shell, it has to peck through and damage some of the blood vessels. They seal off quite quickly, but there's always a little bit of blood exposed at hatching. So that's normal, not unusual at all.
Okay, and another very interesting question. This is quite critical, actually. I'm going back to YouTube now. Stanley has a great question here. How hot can baby eaglets tolerate before it becomes fatal? And I'm just going on to a remark that Lady Hawk said. She said E15 must be a strong eaglet. It took 46 hours to hatch, and the handling of heat in Florida is now 90 degrees right now. So that's really critical. What's your opinion on that, David?
Well, normally, from the moment of pipping, that is when the egg tooth scratches a hole on the inside of the shell to the outside. So for the first time, it pips a hole in the shell, it breathes air. And from that moment to when it hatches is usually 3 to 4 days. So this, maybe you didn't see the first pip, or it was actually very quick. So I don't know which that is, but normally it's 3 to 4 days from the first pip, when it takes its first breath of real air and fills its lungs for the first time, gets that invigoration of oxygen so that it then, with more energy, it can now wiggle its way all the way around the inside of the shell, scratching that inside of the shell to weaken it, along which the shell then cracks. So normally it's 3 to 4 days. Now, where is the heat stress? Hmm. It's likely Florida eagles are a bit more tolerant than northern eagles. I mean, birds do adapt, and here the challenge usually is there's a worry that the eggs are going to hatch and it's freezing outside, and mom has to sit on them with that her brood patch, the where the part of her body that's lost all the feathers, so that the egg is directly up against her her blood filled belly tissue. That keeps the egg warm. Now, down there at 90 degrees, the chick is probably okay. Because, I mean, normally the chick's own body temperature is about 106. So they're probably okay.
And another interesting question. I'm going back to Facebook
Oh,
now.
let me
Oh, you
before
want to
I
go on? Okay,
answer
sure.
that. There's one other thing. When the chick is before it's about 8, 9, 10 days old, the chick doesn't actually produce heat itself. It's it is producing some heat, but it isn't capable of regulating its own heat. It's called its homeothermy. It doesn't have the ability to regulate its temperature. So it's the parent that regulates the temperature for those first 8, 10 days. So, in a sense, 90-degree temperature is less than the mother is going to be if it was up against it. So, what mother would be doing in really hot weather? She'd just be standing up a bit above the chick to let the air move through, because she still wants to keep the chick close to 100 degrees. So, 90 is not a challenge for her, I don't think at all.
Okay, but the temperatures go up very quickly in Florida, right?
They
So,
do. They do. Yeah. And then
yeah.
she would offer shade. You see, that's what
Yes.
she would do. Instead of offering sitting and putting her warm body skin next to the chick to keep it warm, she would simply offer shade and a bit of breeze might blow underneath it so that it still stayed under the 100 degrees.
Yeah, I just see Rise Raptor here. Very nice to have you here, Kurt. Very nice. He's also live. If you, Kurt, if you want to bring in any questions or any comments, please go ahead. I'm jumping back again to Facebook now. Mary Miller has a very interesting point here. Will these chicks be at a disadvantage when they fledge and move on from the nest areas because they'll be at least 2 months younger than most?
Yeah, is that for me?
Yeah, that's all
Yeah.
for you, David.
Yeah, well, okay.
I can answer that.
Well, I wasn't sure if Kurt was going to answer that. So I think that the point is I don't know enough about the local environment to know if food is very seasonal. I would have thought the swamps and the riparian areas around Florida are probably pretty productive all year round. And I would have thought that food is not going to be scarce. Here, when you get more temperate zones, often things are very much more seasonal. And certain foods are available, like, as you know, if you followed our birds, there's some food that's only available in end of April, May, and into June, like the midshipman. Later on, you get something else. And then there's a big hiatus, and there's not much to eat. And so it's built into our northern bird, go north and get free salmon, because the salmon have spawned out and they're dead in northern BC and Alaska. I don't think the environment in Florida has quite that seasonal pressure. So provided it just doesn't get too hot for the chick, I think it'll probably have a food source.
Okay, I'm just going. Thank you very much, David. That's excellent. I'll just jump in with my own question here, because at the moment, just please, both on YouTube and Facebook, keep on running with your questions, because they are, you come up with really great questions that I don't even think of. So please go ahead and pour in as many questions as you can. This is a big opportunity, and it's so nice to be back online with David, especially now. By the way, David is turning 82 tomorrow. Really, it's quite amazing. You wouldn't believe it.
Saying that,
He is so tough. It's unbelievable. It's not it's April Fool's Day, but it's not April Fool's Day. If you look at him, it's quite astounding. So I mean, he deserves a lot of credit. What can I say? I mean, to be in that so fit. By the way, we were together on the Aleutian Islands in Dutch Harbor, and David is as tough as nails. I can tell you that he really is. Very nice to say that. David, I was going to ask you more about, just the current thing about infection, viruses, and so on, that are also heat dependent, and that can be a problem for eaglets. How do you see that?
Oh, heat dependent. I would have preferred to use the words stress dependent.
Okay.
I mean, heat can be a stressor, but the lack of heat can be a stressor. The lack of food can be a stressor. All sorts of things can be stressors, which brings birds' resistance down, whether it's for viruses or bacteria. All these things are problems, but, and the but is really important, these birds are basically scavengers. You know, our fish eagles evolved from the old world vulture group, and so they have evolved for millions of years living on carrion. And so if you're going to live on carrion, boy, you have built into your whole gut system, in your blood system, you built in incredibly good, proven resistances.
Mm-hmm.
So most birds, particularly in this category of bird, don't get many diseases. Now, new things can come along, as we've learned with COVID in humans, and the West Nile virus with many bird species. That was a virus that was new to the world, appears, not that long ago, and it affected many birds, some groups of birds, some families, like corvids, the crow family, more than other birds. Botulism seems to affect waterfowl in particular. But generally, things like predators are least affected by general contaminants and general diseases, except that something like a West Nile can take out a raptor just because they have no resistance to it.
David, I see some suggestions. You're getting lots of birthday wishes already now.
Oh, thank you.
So that's really wonderful. I mean, David's really in isolation. I usually would run these broadcasts together in the same room. We don't even do that now. Can you believe it? But, we'll see if I can resist not eating a cake with you in reality tomorrow. Anyway, you're getting from everywhere lots of birthday wishes, and it's very well deserved. And thank you I'm passing them all on. I see so many birthday wishes for you tomorrow.
Well, thank you. So everybody, I appreciate it. Thank you, and no more.
but anyway, there's one suggestion that I really like. They're saying, well, if the E16 is born tomorrow, let's call it David. Well, I would be there. Vote for it, guys. Vote for it. He deserves it. I mean, this is one of the most renowned, dedicated eagle biologists we ever had. Really, decades. It's our David Attenborough of the Eagles, right? And I would think it's great if they named E16 David, because I think he really deserves it. That's just my opinion, okay? So then I see some others thinking of it. So go and vote for it. Go and vote for it. Yes, David. Yeah, that's it. Anyway, so that would be wonderful.
I want to interject. When Mary passed, my wife,
yes,
first chick that hatched on our web, they called it Mary. So that was kind of a wonderful honor for Mary. So I'm not passing, but I'm passing number 82. So that's good. Okay.
Yeah, that's incredible. David, I'm going to just jump now to Lady Hawk's story, because it's quite important, and we are going to jump to this is the history of M15. Wait a second, no, that's not the one. Oh, it must have jumped there, sorry. This is probably another one. That was one, hang on, Yes, this was about E14, and I'm just going to play Lady Hawk's wonderful footage again. Thank you to Lady Hawk for giving this to me. So this was how it's hugging its sibling the egg. I'm just going to let it run here. Just to go spool a bit forward because it's absolutely beautiful. So on that note, David. Let's talk a little bit about the tragedy of rat poisoning because I think it's a very important
Yeah.
educational point. So just go ahead, please.
Well, this is a tragedy everywhere, not just in Florida. We have the same tragedy here. We have the same tragedy in every other part of the world. It's a tragedy that has a very near. Oh, there. Who's which baby is this? Is that the same?
No, David, that's a previous one that died a month
Okay.
later. So that's
Oh, okay.
E14.
I
Okay,
was
that's
going to say, all
E14.
of a sudden it grew very much over a few days, a few minutes here. Okay, so rat poison is many different kinds. One of the
Mhm.
common kinds, which is not because it's not considered terribly toxic to some humans, is warfarin-based toxins that they put in, which causes the to literally bleed to death from the inside. And this is the same drug that is used in many heart medicines. It thins the blood, causes the blood to thin. And if it causes the blood to thin too much, you bleed to death. And with rat poisoning, but unfortunately, some of it is not all that stable. And if the rat just ingests a number of poisons, and not just the rat poison, I mean, not just warfarin,
Mhm.
but several other rat poisons, many of the poisons are designed, if they pass through a rat, to be less toxic to the next critter that eats the rat.
Mhm.
An animal like a vole will eat a poison and have so much of that poison in its crop, like its esophagus or its early gut, that the the poison hasn't had a chance to break down and change into a non-poisonous form. And so the predator catches this rat that's just full of poison and swallows it quickly, and of the poison when the eagle eats this chick. And we saw that on our nest.
Yes.
One of our birds picked up a vole that had filled itself up with poison from a blueberry patch.
Oh.
One chick grabbed it
Mhm.
and swallowed it instantly, and the next morning it fell over dead.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tragedy that can happen any kinds of predator, whether Cooper's hawk or peregrine falcons, if they eat things which are toxic.
Do you think that actually rat poisoning is even worse than lead poisoning? I mean, I don't know if we can make that comparison, but the way it is now.
Well, you could say it's trending that way, and the reason is many kinds of lead have been reduced in the environment. I mean, we don't use lead-based paints the same way, although
Mhm.
as you know, Christian, you and I are in Canada.
Yeah.
I'm on the border, 10 feet away from
Very much on the
the
border.
United
Yes.
States. And that country, heaven forbid, they keep reducing the concerns from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. They just changed a whole bunch of things 2 days ago and made things more poisonous because it's cheaper to produce more toxic things for some of the businesses. And of course, America is all about making money and not about not poisoning people. So your comment that we're getting less poisonous about some things like lead is maybe changed. In the United
Okay.
States, it's getting more toxic, where in most parts of the world, we're trying to get lead out of the environment. And certainly, many of the main sources of lead, like hunting, where lead shot was used, or lead bullets, which when they hit an animal, they disperse through the meat and so on. That lead is then picked up by particularly the scavengers. I mean, it's big for the eagle, but it's also incredibly toxic for the California condors, which pick up dead pigs that have been shot out in the wild, or deer, and once that lead is in their bodies, it kills them. And I mean, this is worth telling. This is the extreme case, Christian. California condors, which all of
Yes.
them
Yeah.
have been into captivity, and now they're starting to release them again. And there's, I don't know what number it is now, I've forgotten this week as to how many are out in the wild, but there's been a couple of them breeding in the wild. But every condor that's been released back into the wild, I think it's 30 or 40 of them, has to be caught up every year by the scientists, and it has to go through dialysis.
Right.
And blood has to be clean, just like you have to go to a hospital and go through your blood dialysis. They have to catch every wild condor because the wild is still so full of toxic lead. You have to clean the lead out of the blood of California condors,
Isn't that
otherwise they would
crazy?
die. Well, yes, it's not only crazy, it's incredibly indicative of how stupid we are as a human race, because we're going to do the same thing. We're still dumping some lead shot into the wild, but we're still putting lead bullets in deer and so on, which of course kills any of the predator scavengers that pick these little pieces up. So we're just not a very bright group of people.
Yeah, I just see Karen's remark here on Facebook. I'm on warfarin. Yes, I am on rat poisoning. I get my INR tested quite frequently. So there you go. And Mary has another question here. David, had the rat poisoning not played a part in the eventual death of E14, what, in your opinion, would he have possibly survived with a broken blood feather?
Yes, I mean, lots of birds have feathers that are broken. Their feather shaft, that's the blue tube. It's the feather shaft. It's the shaft that holds all the blood and the nutrients, out of which this shaft, the feather grows. That's pretty durable. I mean, all birds grow their feathers out of shafts. All birds have to go through a period of growing the feather when they're vulnerable. So the whole avian world has learned to grow. Oh, isn't that gorgeous, that little chick? He's just every chick has to, young bird has to be able to grow feathers. So they've overcome as a species the fragility of, oh, that is a close-up of the eye. My goodness, we're going to look into the bird's brain here momentarily. So yes, all bird feathers have a built-in safety component about being durable, but there are things that can happen. I mean, I am sure this is not the first bird that may have damaged it. Another chick could catch a claw in it in doing things. They could bang them. Some birds just may be more rambunctious and bang them.
Yeah,
And
just
that's
to
part of
clarify.
the
Yeah,
learning process. They have to learn not to be too rambunctious. If you're too rambunctious and you damage all your feathers, you're not going to survive. So,
yeah.
there.
Just a clarification for those who've just joined. I see Deborah Ehlers is also there. Old friend of mine from South Africa, school friend. Is quite amazing. So that is his wonderful wife in Seattle. I just wanted to quickly say. So what we're showing here is not E15. This is a recap of E14. That was from the first clutch, and then came the replacement clutch. This is footage from Lady Hawk that she's kindly providing. And the reason why I was showing this was because we were talking about rat poisoning, which was the cause of death for E14. So I will just jump back now on the live camera. Here it is.
And they did a study, did they, on this? So they actually analyzed
Yes.
the bird's blood after it died, and they found that out to be
Yeah,
the case.
that's my understanding. Yes, they removed E14 from the nest and then analyzed it and found that. Yes, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, wonderful to pin it down. That's what's wonderful. It's a shame that it died, but wonderful that they pinned it down.
Yeah, just some quick facts for you on this wonderful, quite incredible nest. So, Harriet is the female, and she's been here ever since 2006. She started 2006, so she's estimated to be over 25 years old. That's quite remarkable. This is, by
Yeah.
the way, thank you to Dick Pritchett Real Estate. We're using their live stream, so it's really wonderful. We are very thankful for that. So Harriet has been coming to the nest since 2006. She originally arrived with another male. That was Ozzy, of course, famous Ozzy. He passed away in the fall of 2015, and Harriet then bonded with M15, male 15, right? 2019 marks their fifth season, so this is where the nest is about 60 feet from the ground in a pine tree, and so on. So that's some of the background. Eagles incubate for about 35 days. I think it's more common now that we know it's 36, 37 days, at least as far as Florida is concerned. With both parents pitching in, the young leave the nest about 11 weeks later. Harriet is probably at least 25 years old, according to the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission records. So that's quite amazing. David, I wanted to tell you something else. Quickly jump in,
Yeah.
if I can find this scientific paper. Ah, gosh, where is that? Oh, yes, I know where it is. I just want to jump in because this is very interesting. So let me just get it here. This is very interesting. I found here an old paper that is called The Effects of Egg Removal on Bald Eagle Productivity in Northern Florida. This was published somewhere in the early 90s, and I'm just going to read the abstract because it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's out of focus for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you.
don't worry. I'm going to read it. We removed eggs from bald eagle, Haliatus leucocephalus, which, for those of you who don't know, the first one is the fish eagle and the other one's the whitehead. Nests in northern Florida from 1985 through 1988 to determine if pairs would lay again and evaluate how egg removal affected subsequent productivity. And here it goes.
Oh,
Of 58 pairs that
wow.
had first clutches removed, 45, that is 78%, laid a second clutch within an average of 29.4 days. In one study area, productivity of pairs that had their first clutch removed, that is one young fledged per breeding attempt, was less than the control pair that produced their clutches during the same time period. In contrast, no difference in productivity occurred between donor and control pairs, and so on. So that's quite interesting. Consequently, egg removals over a limited number of seasons and nests were effective in providing large number of eagles for release with limited adverse effect on Florida's donor population. An egg removal program may be an effective alternative strategy to captive breeding and translocation of young in recovery actions among raptor populations requiring active management, particularly for tropical species that have long breeding seasons. Quite interesting, right? Any comments?
Yeah, that's incredible. I did not actually know of that study, but I do know of that principle in wildlife management. That is the reason that we actually have whooping cranes existing today. It is we when there was only one and two pairs in the entire world breeding, a group of conservation people got behind collecting one of the eggs out of the nest. In this case, it wasn't replacing the whole clutch, it was taking one egg out and rearing that captive reared egg and leaving the cranes to have their one egg. And it turns out that that almost doubled the number of cranes being reared because it, the cranes left in the wild with their one chick did better than when they had two chicks because the two chicks didn't fight and one kill the other and then the other become weaker. So it turns out the one original chick that was left did better, and then they took the birds into captivity, the other egg, and raised that. That's how we today have a
Right.
wonderful big, not only captive population of whooping crane, but we have them now back re-released, in fact, into areas of Florida and Louisiana and so on. A wonderful way of actually increasing the productivity of the wilderness. In this case, their eagle project was pulling both eggs and causing the pair to actually have to lay a second clutch, and that was increased the productivity as well. So there's lots of management tools here that are quite effective, quite effective.
Right. I mean, you were talking about the condor that would have died out. You know, it would have been extinct without human intervention, right? So,
Well, it's pretty likely they were down to what was it, 16 or 17 birds, same as the condor. I mean, the whooping crane.
whooping
Both of them were
cranes.
down to within one or two of the same numbers, and now both populations are into the hundreds, and it's kind of wonderful that we've been able, through management techniques and captive rearing, to bring these populations back again. And we wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for people putting a lot of time and effort into the captive rearing of these species.
Right. Right. Okay. Any more questions? This wonderful event. Does anybody else have questions? I'm just looking. I see lots of comments here from Amanda. Sparkle Eagle, we've already answered the question with E14. Would have likely survived if the blood feather. No, even if the blood feather didn't break. Yes, we. That's an interesting question. Now I read it. So this is the reverse question. Let's say the blood feather hadn't broken. Would it have likely survived on rat poison? I think I know the answer, but what are you going to say, David?
Well, if the blood feather hadn't broken and the inability of the bird to form platelets to seal it off, the bird could still have bled to death internally, which rats die. They don't outwardly bleed to death from a cut. They bleed to death from gut tissue blood, just dripping into the blood, into the system inside the rat. And this could have happened with the young eaglet. It could have bled to death internally. A follicle that was dripping
Oops, we're losing
blood.
David sometimes. Yeah, we lost you sometimes. Sometimes the internet, but it's not cutting out a lot. We may have lost the last few words you said, David. So that's all. So and anyway, there's another.
Well, I mean, the
Yeah,
bottom.
go on.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, birds like rats can bleed to death internally without. In this case, this particular young eagle had an obvious break in the outer part of the feather, and it would not heal. The platelets wouldn't seal that the blood to death. It could have bled if it didn't bleed to death externally.
Now, here's an interesting question, something else. This is from Periscope. Very nice to have your question here. I saw a mating pair at Cape Canaveral in 1987. Now we have to do a little bit of arithmetic. Is it possible that pair is still alive? So 1987, 1990, that is, that's 30 years, right? That's more than 33 years. What do you think, David?
Well, let's hope so. I mean, eagles have lived in captivity for 50 or 60 years. They know that. The vicissitudes of nature, the trials and tribulations, being able to make a living and compete with neighbors and all of these things, much more stress on individual birds than living in captivity does. So a bird that's living 30 years and 25 years, it has had a long life to continually compete with each other. So you wouldn't expect a wilderness bird to live as long as a bird in captivity.
Okay. Okay, maybe
Queen has gone totally.
Yeah, Kurt's jumping in with the this Rise Raptor. I just said, David, are bald eagles known to take live mammals to any great extent? I've seen them take ducks, etc. Any comment on that?
Well, yeah, there are some areas where they take a lot more mammals than others. We never even thought here that voles and so on were important food until we started to watch them closely. And it turns out that it's hard for eagles to catch a vole, but there are times when they learn that they can. And that time is following the field harvesting, when the fields are tall and they're cut by cutting machine, and all of a sudden the stubble is only 2 and 3 inches high, and the voles, which have been running around on the protection of that tall grass, are now all of a sudden running around and they're exposed. And you can see here in the Fraser Valley, the eagles come down following the tractors that are cutting the grass, and they'll come down and grab the voles. And you can see them catch 2 and 3 in a few minutes behind these tractors. So there is an adaptation where the eagles have learned how to catch very effectively a mammal under a very specific circumstance. Now, they normally could catch the odd muskrat and
Right.
maybe even the odd baby mink, and there are records of them catching baby sea otters, and so on. So there are some kinds of mammals that do get caught on a regular basis. Across the north, it's baby muskrats. That's a relatively hugely captured number of food sources are muskrats, because they're in open areas out in the water, and they're easily picked up. And even in shallow waters, the eagles can nail them when they're under a few inches of water. So
By the way, for those of you who've just joined, I'm talking to eagle biologist David Hancock. He's a good friend of mine, specialist in eagles all his life long. So we're very happy to have him here at this special event. I also wanted to just add here this more general question. 1 second. Where was it? I just lost it. Oh, yes. Phyllis is asking, how old is the breeding age of eagles? Okay, David.
the breeding age, well, they don't get their whitehead till the 5th year in this area. Some people think they may get, in some areas, may get the whitehead in the 4th year, but they certainly don't here until the 5th year. And it's pretty obvious. A great many 5th year and 6-year-old birds don't even breed. And now that we've started to put trackers on some, we're seeing that the birds are often still remaining non-territorial and non-breeding. Now, we had a big disaster here among nesting eagles a few years back, and there was a lot locally killed by a group
Right.
of people who were trading in eagle feathers. I had 5 eagles in the lower Fraser Valley here that I could see that the nests the previous year had all been occupied by adult eagles, and on this particular year, I had 5 that were occupied by eagles with little black feathers in their head, which were 5-year-old birds. So because a lot of birds have been killed, young birds have the incentive and the ability to move in and take over as breeders. Now, it's basically possible that it's harder for the young 5-year-old to get a place to nest. So they have to maybe wait longer until they're 6 or 7 before they can get into the breeding population. It's not that they can't, it's just that maybe they can't from a behavioral point of view.
Yes, there are just a lot of questions asking where I got this paper from, because it's raising some interest. I'm just going to jump over quickly and give you this. I will post the link on where I can post it. It's on both.
Send me a
YouTube.
copy of it.
Yeah,
please.
of course I will, David. It's on YouTube and also on Facebook. I will put it. Again, this paper is called "Effects of Egg Removal on Bald Eagle Productivity in Northern Florida." So very relevant indeed. It's quite a relevant paper for this discussion. So, okay, so we'll go back to the. 1 second, let's go right back. Got so many beautiful things here from Lady Hawk. Oh wait, that was the 360 camera.
Let me interrupt. Interpreting that paper,
yes,
it's very likely that it was quite a different circumstance. It's very likely that the people who were orchestrating that study would have taken the eggs shortly after they had been laid, not that they had gone through full incubation and hatched several weeks old. A biologist doing a conservation project like this would have waited till the eggs were laid, and very shortly thereafter, in a week or 10 days, would have pulled the eggs.
Right.
And this would have been a much and better way of stimulating a second clutch. And this is often what is done in management of quail and other bird species. Um, so it's a bit different than the one here, where it had hatched naturally after 36, 37 days, and then even lived some weeks before it died. And then after all that, the bird was still capable of recycling another couple of yolks and developing them into big yolks and then releasing them into the body cavity for going down the oviduct. That's a very different concept, what's happened in that pair.
Right, right, right. Okay, I think, you know what, David, I think this has really been an exceptionally great session, and maybe we can do part two. Oh yeah, show me. Let's look at David's garden quickly. It's quite amazing. Wait, let me just put this on.
There's a
1 sec. I'm just going to put this on the big screen. Just hang on.
Sitting on the table outside the door, and she's picking at a bird feeder because she likes to take the same fat-based food that I feed woodpeckers outside my window here, and so she's up enjoying the same thing.
well, David's garden is most amazing. David, can you give us another view that was a good view, and just explain a bit what you all have out there? Well, even if it's not visible, but just turn it again.
Right. Yeah, the cranes aren't here right now. They were here a few minutes ago. This is a female peacock, a peahen they call them, and she's just parasitizing my woodpecker and my chickadee feeder that's right beside my window here, because I enjoy having them come to the window. There's cranes, a whole bunch of them outside as well, and in fact, maybe you can see them down there by the gate. You see a gate.
Yes, we do see it. We can see it. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's stretching its wings now.
The other direction, but you can't see them. I have several. There's 3 breeding pairs, hopefully, of cranes.
Well, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. 1 second. Let me just... that's great. Okay, very nice, David. Well, anyway, so I think that's... I hope you've all enjoyed the stream, and, you can continue enjoying the live stream. David, we're also just coming quickly to our nests. Maybe a quick comment where we are at with our nests.
That's right. Well, Florida is so much earlier. Here they're into their second brood. Our first eggs are about to hatch this about a week from now. So 5 days, 7 days, somewhere in that period. So our nesting season is a little bit later. We've got cameras in 4 nests. 3 of them have their eggs, and 2 of them have 2 eggs. 1 of them has 3 eggs. The 4th nest, which is called the Harrison Mills, out on the Harrison River, where we get the 10, 15,000 eagles every fall. That pair is always later. We kind of wonder if it's a very cold channel coming down out of the mountains. Every year, the pair that's nested there, several pairs, have always been quite a bit later, and we expect them to lay next week. They usually lay early April, which the other birds hatch early April. So, in fact, my birthday was always, I had 2 birds that hatched on my birthday, and they were always the first 2. I suspect we've got a few birds up here this year because things are getting earlier and earlier every year. I suspect there's been a few birds that have already hatched their young, but because of the quarantine of everybody, or at least the discouragement of people going out and around, I have done less running around, so it's easier to watch the birds that have already got cameras in the nest. Then you know what's going on. So we welcome anybody to go into HancockWildlife.org.
Yeah, let me quickly show it. 1 second, David. I can do this. 1 second. I'm just going to do that.
If they're getting late, like now, where they want to watch another full cycle of chicks, you can watch the new ones that are going to be hatching on our site coming up. So, and then they can compare it with these big chicks as they get bigger and bigger.
So here, all the while, this is directly on the HancockWildlife.org website, and you can see all the different live views of the different nests. So quite a few.
Nest, White Rock nest.
That's right.
Surrey Reserve nest, and then the Harrison Mills nest. There's four of them that we have cameras in this year.
So if you go there to live view, I'm just doing that, pressing, clicking on one, you can see again that's subdivided into different cameras again. Okay, so it's quite beautiful. Oh, there we go. Let's just do that one. So, by the way, David, tell us before we leave. I mean, David is so remarkable because he was one of the, I would say, the great actually initiators of webcams for eagles. Tell us a little bit about the history because it's so fascinating the way you started and the way you completely flooded the internet. It nearly broke down.
It was yes. Well, it was a kind of an unusual cycle. I'm not technically a very competent person, as you know, but I was giving a talk over on Vancouver Island, and somebody stood up and said, "Oh, I just made a video on my home television of an eagle nest that nests above my place. Can I show you 5 minutes of it?" And the convener of the meeting said, "Well," looked at me, and I said, "Sure, let him show it." Well, he showed this shot of a camera in an eagle's nest, and he recorded it on his television set below the nest. He ran off because he said, "I have to get a ferry," but I managed to track him down the following week. And he said, "Oh, I'm not at all interested in the extra effort to get this out onto the public. I phoned up from this guy's house on two ferries away, and my tech man, who's now unfortunately passed, said certainly we could get, if he can get it down the camera, down into a television set, we can get it out to the world." And he then added afterwards, "Well, it all depends on money." Anyway, the bottom line is by March, we managed to get the first live broadcast of an eagle out to the world anywhere. And it was awesome because I was planning to be in Antarctica at the time. I wrote a press release to my friends, and I made it to all the people I knew who were raptor biologists. And there was 43,000 of them around the world, 43,000 emails I got ready to go out as a press release. Well, I got home from Antarctica the week before we finally went live. And it turns out I realized when I saw the cameras live that these eggs weren't going to hatch because they take 4 days from pipping to breaking open and the chick being revealed. At least here they do. And so I had 4 days to find another nest, put a camera in. So the thousands of people that were watching, and when I say the number that were watching, after we sent those 43,000 out, those emails, every day, the whole web system was brought down because so many people wanted to watch this female sitting on her egg. Initially, the world could only hold 2,500 live broadcasts. The next day, we got 5,000. The next day, somebody turns out from Microsoft phoned me and said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen, except that I can't get to see it very often because it's all jammed up." He says, "If you want, Microsoft in Redmond, Washington, south of us here, will make this available for you." The next morning, they opened up their big tubes, and in seconds, less than a second, the world had taken command and brought down the Microsoft. The next day, they did all that was available out of Chicago. And it didn't last more than a second again, and it brought it down. So over the next 10 days, we ended up with like 60,000 people simultaneously able to watch an eagle.
60,000.
It was
Oh my
awesome.
goodness.
I happened to get another camera already organized and got it set up, but that's another story. But it was kind of awesome that so many people got to watch one thing simultaneously alive. The world had never seen that before. The previous record had been held by the Pope at a live broadcast he had given. And then all of a sudden, the project of the world that got the most live broadcast happened to be our little eagles at Sydney.
That's wonderful.
It
That's
ultimately
absolutely
wasn't
wonderful.
fair on Hornby Island. It was the ones on Sydney that got the big numbers because that's where the actual young chicks were.
What a wonderful
So
story.
we went through
What
that,
a wonderful
and of course,
story.
I ended up doing live broadcasts. I did 17 live international broadcasts on one day. Everything from Australian broadcasting to all American networks, the Canadian networks, several in the Europeans, and radio and television. So it just made the world news everywhere. In the CBC, we have a national network, and the guy he he put a computer screen up on the stage beside him, and 3 times during the first day's news broadcast, he'd say, hold on a minute, I have to get up," and he'd walk over and look at this television and show our live screen. So, because CBC is a national network, every other network in the world carried the CBC, and so every news outlet in the world carried in their own television studios the live broadcast, and many of them put it out live, and so that's how we ended up with so
Yeah,
much.
David, what year are you talking about? Amanda was just
We are
asking
talking
that.
in 2006,
2006. Wow.
in March of 2006.
March of 2006. Isn't that an incredible story?
We made the agreement to put the camera in as the birds were beginning to nest in November, December, but we couldn't get it live because there was all sorts of challenges and problems.
That's
Um,
incredible.
and we got it going in March the something of 2006.
And you
So,
said so at one stage 60,000 viewers, right?
well, that was in the first few days. We got 55 million viewers the first year. It was the biggest
55 million. That beats any
55.
Nest camera that we've ever seen. Really,
Well,
that beats everything.
it was by far the most that
Everything.
ever people had ever
Even to
used
date,
this
David. Even to
camera.
date. Even to date.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
wow.
I know there are things now that can get that, but the world has now had these 15 years, literally, is 14
Yes.
of learning the technology. This technology wasn't there for simultaneously being able to download the screens, and it got better every single day, and every year it got better. And by the time we were into the third year, there was a lot of eagle nest being shown, but the first year we had it all to ourselves, all to ourselves. Yeah.
Wow. Well, David, this has been a wonderful hour. We just even 1 hour 15 minutes nearly. Well, thank you so much.
I'm so
And
pleased, and you gave some credit to Pritchard. I've never met him, but he's
okay, let
done
me put the camera
wonderful.
on again. So because that's
Yeah,
the way we'll end this. 1 second.
he's done wonderful. Oh, that was
Absolutely.
one of our nests. Those are our nests. I just recognized that you're looking at our nest there.
Yes, I was. Of course, because it was suitable. Hang on 1 second. It
Yeah.
was suitable, of course. Oh, this is a live view again of this is the Pritchard nest. I mean, in the meantime, they have this 360 camera, which is quite amazing. They have this close-up camera. Look at this. There's the second pip, right? Isn't it amazing? It's,
Yeah. That's Pip is well started. That can go right around the egg in about a day and
yes.
a bit. Yeah.
Yes. Well, anyway, I wanted to thank all of you. Really, thank you so much for all your questions. Thank you for all your participation here, your dedication to Eagles, and also for all your wonderful questions. It's been absolutely magnificent. It was completely spontaneous. I just woke up this morning, got this message from.
Let me interrupt, Christian. Let me interrupt, because it's really right there, right now, is a really interesting feature. You can see the little chick's beak and the egg tooth sticking through where it's just broken the shell. Now, this is a very, very dangerous time, particularly if it's 90 degrees, because there's a big possibility that egg could actually dry out, and the chick's blood vessels seal up and stick the chick to the actual eggshell. So we hope that the mother sits on it a lot and keeps the moisture level, the relative humidity, quite high on the egg, because if the thin membranes of the chick from the inside of the egg dry up, then the chick won't be able to get out. So there's a concern. Let's hope mom spends more time sitting on the egg than worrying about feeding the chick, because chicks sometimes don't have to feed for 2 days.
Right. Well, Kit's already saying part 2, please. So, Kit from Reading, of course, Kit is.
Yes.
She's saying part 2, please. Yes, we will definitely do that. Okay. So, as David just mentioned, it's a very critical time. I didn't know that. So, to do with the moisture level and drying out. So, let's hope it does well and that Mama gets back on it very soon.
Yeah.
And keeps it well thermally insulated. Okay, well, thank you everyone for participating once again. Wonderful questions, and it's been an absolute joy everywhere on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Periscope. And we'll be back very soon. So when we get the second hatch, maybe even on David's birthday, that would be great. We'll make some time and have another event because it's so special. Okay, so thank you everyone, and maybe David, some famous last words.
Well, the next famous words or the things to be paying attention to is the fact that this chick is already eating. That's very unusual.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that again because it appears I'm seeing the chick actually. There it is. It's eating food right now, and if that's live. And that chick
It's live. It's live. Yes.
And the chick only hatched this morning. Was
yes.
it?
Yes, at 5 Eastern time. Yes, Eastern time. Yes.
This morning.
Yes.
Not yesterday. This morning.
No, this morning. This morning. Well, that's difficult to say. As Lady Hawk says, we don't exactly know because we couldn't see it. But we said 5:30 something when we saw it, so it could be a few hours earlier. We don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because that's often. You get a lot of people very concerned that the bird will go a day or 2 or 3 without eating. And it's all to do with where it hatched relative to the absorption of its egg yolk. The egg yolk is what has been the source of nutrients for this chick that's developed. And as it hatches, they normally absorb the egg yolk all back in through the umbilical tube. But sometimes they don't. And sometimes there's some of it still left outside, and it has to slowly be reabsorbed into the bird's body. And then it has to be absorbed out of the gut cavity, out of the colon, and into the bird's blood system, because the bird won't allow food to come down into the gut from the mouth until it's got a clean gut and it's used up all the egg yolk that was already there at the time of hatching. So that's another big challenge that now the balance has to be. It won't eat until the egg yolk is absorbed. And that's often why birds don't eat, is because they haven't absorbed all their egg yolk yet. And mom has to keep offering it, testing them over and over again. And then finally on the second, sometimes, and even some occasions on the third day, it finally eats. There's nothing wrong with it. Not starving to death. It's got food that it's getting from its own inside still, from its own yolk. So it's not to worry about that. It's just the bird has to sense when it's already finished absorbing and using all its egg yolk, then it can accept something from mom.
So this is actually very good news, of course, that it's eating already.
It obviously is doing well. It's incredible that it's eating already. So it obviously has absorbed the yolk already, used it up.
Well, David, let's talk a lot more, hopefully tomorrow on your birthday. If the or when the second one hatches, and I think we'll continue a lot more because I mean you're such a fountain of knowledge and people are enjoying this. I can see all the comments, so it's an absolute privilege having you here. Okay,
It was fun. I enjoyed it, and I mean, how could you not have fun and enjoy having such an intimate, incredibly intimate view of this bird? I mean, until these cameras came along. We only, as biologists, looked at it with telescopes and up at a great distance. And the cameras in the nest have just changed the intimacy of biological observation incredibly so.
Very good, David. Okay, so I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone first on Periscope. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to shut down the Periscope first. I've always got so many buttons to press here, so 1 second. Stop broadcast, got that one done. Okay, so next, thank you for everyone on Facebook. That was absolutely wonderful having you, all your questions. I hope I saw most of them. I have seen where you all come from, and thanks for all your comments. I read them, but I can't read them all out because there was so much going on, so thank you very much. And finally, to everyone on YouTube, I'm just going to, for all the kind comments and, all you wonderful people. Really seeing you all again. We'll do more live broadcasts, especially, David is such a fountain of knowledge, and we hope to have him around for quite some time still, so that we can all enjoy this. Okay.
Yeah, he hopes to be around for a while too.
Okay, David. Okay, everyone, take care. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.